to the menagerie things around my neck already. Well, I'm honored that you have chosen to come in here again after just having heard me speak. But I trust, again, you're not here so much for me, but it's what the Lord has turned the subject to be. There are handouts, so if you haven't gotten one yet, my assistant. So. As I said, this is going to be more interactive in part because it is late at night, and I don't know if you have read, like, what was the book I just read? So helpful. It will come to me? No, it's not coming to me. But the author talks about larks, night owls, and third birds. So larks are morning people. Night owls, obviously, are more at night. And third birds, it really has to do with when you go to sleep and when you wake up in your midpoint of sleep. And I normally am shutting down about this time of night. I'm totally a morning person, so if we were doing this session at, say, 6 a.m., it would be my prime time. I am serious. Well, maybe 7. Give me, 6 a.m. to do aerobics, and then by 7 I've worked out some of the energy so I can be more focused. So it is hilarious that I'm presenting at this time because as I say, normally I'm shutting down. So I'm assuming some of you at least are also larks, and this is not your prime time. But if we can have this be more interactive, then you can be engaged. So I would like for you to talk to someone near you, which in part, this is always my worst nightmare. I seem very outgoing. I'm more of an introvert than you would know. I like people I know. People I don't know, I don't have a strong need to actually talk to them, which is like the opposite of missions, isn't it? But that's why I'm drawn to relational ministry. When I know people, I really like them. So if you don't know someone near you and I've just asked you to talk to someone you don't know and it's your nightmare, I'm so sorry. But you're going to have to because I'm a lark and I'm shutting down. So I need you to be acting. What draws you to this topic? And I'm curious for you to share with someone near you who are missionaries you know and kind of what might be some of the risky situations they're in. So what are you thinking of as we are discussing this topic? So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to share with people near you who are missionaries you know and what are some of the risky situations they're in. I'm going to cut into your talking because there will be, in a while we'll come back and kind of apply what we're going to be talking about to these situations. But I wish you could be up here and see you talking, how animated you get thinking about your friends on the field and thinking about the people you support, and that this isn't just a theoretical topic, but these are real people you know. They are real friends, real missionaries, real marriages, real situations. And that just encourages me to have seen and to know, like, this is the beauty of the body of Christ. In this room, I think there's about 54 of us in here. And to think of the different people you know on the field, and just how that multiplies out. And that we are physically here in person, but because of the Holy Spirit, and we're thinking of them, we're also there. Like, it's the weird metaphysical bit of time travel, but not time travel. It's also beautiful. I wanted to start by reading Psalm 23 because I find this to be such a beautiful picture of God's heart for us when we are living that life of rest, but there's also real risk involved in life. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's God's heart for those friends you were just thinking of, those missionaries. That is his heart for them. So as I was thinking of potential areas of risk for a cross-cultural worker's life, I thought of elements of physical harm. They could be in physical harm. One element of potential risk is proximity to medical care. Maybe they don't live near medical care, or it's on the other side of the city and traffic is horrendous and it might take 2 hours to get to the hospital. So it could be all different types of proximity. Maybe their child has a severe allergy and there's only one city in the entire country that has the right hospital with the right kind of medicine. So, as I say, it could look like a whole variety of different things. Another risk is ministry fit. Is this a good fit for them? And if it's not a good fit, then maybe are they more prone to take more risky things because this isn't the best fit? Or are they more prone to just become so bored because it's not a good fit? And even within here, with ministry fit, keep married couples where one is just thriving and one it's a horrible fit. And what do we do with that? So that level of risk. We'll just leave that there and come back to it. Exposure to chronic stress. Some of the environments are just so, dangerous, or there's noise all the time, or I mean there's just something that is so out of your control that makes it so stressful, and then there's just chronic stress, people banging on your walls, or you don't have running water, or you're not sure when you're going to have running water, so it's hard. I mean, just some of those things that it's that chronic stress that just is there. Physical health. So some people that might have, as I said, an allergy, and you don't have as much control over your food, you don't know what's in it, you don't have the labeling that we might have in the West or in a more developed area. You might have asthma, and you're living in a country that the pollution is getting worse and worse and worse. And so trying to figure out what do you do with just some of that. You have cancer, and you're trying to figure out, is the country I live in, is the treatment going to be equal and adequate? Or should I go either to another country, maybe perhaps Thailand, some other country in the region, or even back here to North America? So trying to figure out some of those health-related risks. Emotional well-being is another area for risk. And here I was also just thinking of the rotation of people in and out of your lives. We all know, if you've been in the mission world long enough, which aka 5 minutes, your teammates have already changed. It's just like the rotation in and out of your life. And I just know some long-term missionaries that something that has been going, like they knew, this has been a part of it for years, but there's just something, it hit a tipping point this year. It hit a tipping point, it's exhausting. And the reason they might leave the mission field is they're just worn out by teammates in and out. So it's not even the locals, it's not even the work. But it's just, as I said, hit that tipping point. And for each person, that tipping point is going to be at a different place. And you sometimes don't even know you're coming near to a tipping point, do you? Until you've tipped over. And all you just know is for some reason it's different than it was a year ago. And I can't do it anymore. Or I'm feeling like I can't do it anymore. And trying to figure, so that risk, that it's maybe not a physically risky place, but they just emotionally, the toll of the risk of the rotation has worn them out. Another risk is debt. Be that medical bills or people going to the field with student debt and assuming they're going to be able to raise enough support to cover it, and then they don't, and so now they're getting into debt with their agency, and just sort of the whole issue. And you've got kids getting older on the field now, you're thinking about schooling back in the States or Canada or somewhere, college costs, and just this whole, the risk of when does God call us to risk our finances? What is healthy risk? What is unhealthy risk? What is wise risk when it comes to all of this? And in your personal life. So that could be a whole variety of things, whether it's, as I said, related to wanting to have children, wanting to get married, having marital stress, having aging parents back home and trying to figure out, should I return back to the States? Different family situations. Maybe your sister is having very serious surgery and has young children. Like, do you go back and support your family during some sort of medical? So just some of those things that are related to your personal life that sort of have nothing at all to do with where you live, what your ministry is, but it's very real in your life and it's impacting, which then you think about the impact on your teammates and the work. And you guys know, you live in the world too. It just kind of spirals out to all of this. Risks that are related to your stage of life. As I said, being single, married, things with infertility, things related to having young children in a country, things related to having teens in that country, related to empty nesting and transitioning them back to wherever home is and whatever that looks like, whether it's college or trade school or a job, trying to figure out what's next for them, dealing with aging parents. And then I just put transportation as a whole category. Because that, again, what other world but in missionary world is transportation a category? And just the risk that it could involve, whether that is the ferry buses overnight, driving on the rickety roads, and is it going to go over the cliff? And I'm sure you've all been on those bus rides too. You're like, oh, 17 people died last week around this corner. Great, thank you. But just all of those things related to riding a bike and accidents, and I had teammates' kids' feet, caught in the spokes, and the ripped feet of bikes, just all the stuff that goes with all forms of transportation. What other areas have you thought of when you were talking in your groups about potential areas for risk for missionaries? Yes. I'm sorry, say that again? Political unrest. Yeah, duh. Very sorry. I totally missed that. That's a huge one right now. Political unrest. What other areas did you think of? Environmental, okay.
She said it. I just was reporting for her.
You're reporting, yes. So environmental. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Just even, I know from being captured. Taken hostage.
Kidnapped, captured, hostage.
Yes.
Yeah.
When they go, into certain areas or into the jungle or so forth.
That they are risking, getting captured in the jungle. I'm repeating for the recording. If you're like, did you not hear me? I did. But I was just repeating for the recording.
Well, the other is natural disaster.
Natural disasters. Yep. And living in parts of the world that might have different building codes. So you have an earthquake, and suddenly a lot more damage and destruction and death and harm because of that. Yep. Any more? I don't want to rush. Crime. Did you say crime? Yeah, dealing with crime. Whether it's petty pickpocketing, like you just don't even know going out to the market, or more serious breaking into your apartment, being attacked. For women, getting creepy guys pressing up against you on public transportation. I mean, just all of that. Yes, the crime, the stress of that. Thank you. I hadn't thought about that either. That's helpful. All right. When we think about how do we take all of these big categories and kind of break them down or think in a helpful way for ourselves and for missionaries that we know, I love this verse, these two verses in Zechariah 11. And you're familiar with Zechariah. You know he's one of the minor prophets. And you know that the prophets, both the quote-unquote minor and the quote-unquote major prophets, what did they repeatedly do? They repeatedly called Israel back to the Lord. Repeatedly. Come back. It's like a whole almost third of the Bible. Come back. And by this point, Zechariah, we know we're nearish the end of the book. So Zechariah has also been building his case, chapter after chapter. Come back. If you don't come back, this is what's going to happen if you don't come back. And finally here in chapter 11, you can almost sense a turn that he's just like, all right, fine, I wash my hands. If you're not going to come back, this is what's going to happen. And he said, take again the equipment of a foolish shepherd, for I am going to raise up a shepherd over the land who will not care for the lost, or seek the young, or heal the injured, or feed the healthy. And when I read this, it suddenly was just such a succinct way of, well, if this is what a foolish shepherd, if this is not what a good shepherd does, then we know that that's God's heart for people, is that a good shepherd will care for the lost, will seek the young, will heal the injured, and will feed the healthy. So even when we think about the Psalm 23, that is the Good Shepherd. And this is such a beautiful explanation of what that is. And so I love those verbs when we are dealing with people who are in risky situations, in situations where they need to rest. Element of care, seek, heal, and feeding. And in part, what draws me so much to this is it is so comprehensive. When we look also at just the different stages that people can be in, that we are in, the lost here does not refer to the spiritually lost. I realize when we're talking about missions, it's easy to think about the lost in that way. But here, the lost is, and we have all been there, where you're just lost in your own life. You're lost in your own story. You feel like somehow the plot has just gotten lost. It's not that you don't believe in Jesus. It's not that you don't love Jesus. But you feel, is this ministry time coming to an end? Like there's a lot of transition. Or you're just lost in, what do we do next? Or the government isn't going to let us be in this country, so what's next? It's kind of just that whole lostness where you're just not sure or when do we know when it's time to go home? With this educational stress that this child is facing, is it time to leave? Is it not time to leave? And you're just trying to sort through, and it's not clear. Sometimes God is so clear, right? And sometimes He is not. And you do just feel lost, and you've prayed for help, you've prayed for discernment, and for whatever reason, God is not revealing to you. And it's confusing. When you know someone in that state, I love that the verb that goes with when you're lost is care. It's not seek them out. They already know they're lost. It's not even heal them. Oh, there's a problem here. I need to heal you. It's the message, that you're just broken, so we just heal you. And it's not even feed, but it's care. And so when we think about what does it look like to care for the lost, I'm going to give you a moment with the people near you to think about those people that you know, and even if maybe they're not lost in any way, but how does it look like to care at a distance for a missionary who is lost? 2 minutes, briefly discuss. Oh, thank you. Okay. I thought I can just be quiet. So you don't have to pay so much attention. Thank you. All right. This section over here, what's one idea someone has how we can care for the lost? Staying in communication. I think we don't, sometimes we overthink these things. Like, what are the big things? Staying in communication. Whether that's via email, WhatsApp, whatever. Being in communication. An idea from this section. Noticing it. Sometimes it's so powerful for someone to say, wow, it's confusing to know what to do, isn't it? And you haven't even offered any solutions or any ideas. You've just acknowledged it. When we validate, I think that goes so far for caring. Because it does say, oh wait, you noticed. Sometimes we need outside help, but sometimes I don't need you to solve my problems. I just need you to go, I see that you're in a tough place. And I feel cared for. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel if I don't have something meaningful to offer, then I feel bad about myself. And so suddenly it's becoming more about me helping you than me actually helping you. You know, am I focusing on me or you? And to remember, caring sometimes is simply acknowledging. I don't have to fix it. I don't have to know more. But if I can just acknowledge, I see this is hard. That's care. This section over here.
I would say listening to their whole story and just letting them know it's normal.
Listening to the whole story and letting them know it's normal. It's okay. I think a lot of missionaries feel the pressure. If you know the whole story, are you going to make me leave the field? Is this going to influence my finances? I mean, and just letting people know your finances are secure, your location is secure, unless, you know, if there, I mean, there's a few areas where I have to say if suicide is involved, you know, suicidal stuff, danger, right, physical harm, but in general, all that, you know, you are safe. But you can share your whole story here. Yeah. All right. Then the next one is the seek and the young. Now, what I think in this one is so interesting, and I've had to begin to correct it in myself, is associating young with an age. And going, oh, no. We can all be young in areas in our life. It's not about an age. Maybe someone is, 43, but it's their first time in language school. They're young in language school. You're a first-time parent. You're young in parenting. Your kid, it's the first time they go off to elementary school. Well, you're still young in that phase. You have just started a new project. You're young. But because we associate young, I think, with an age, we miss a lot of the youngness on the field. And we tend to think of being young as, oh, it's your first year on the field. We're all young in certain areas in our lives at all times. It might be young to widowhood. It might be young to retirement. These are not phases of life we tend to associate youngness with. And so I would like for all of us to broaden our definition of young. And what's so beautiful, the verb that goes with young is seek. It is not on the young to go seek the help. It's on us to seek the young. To look for the young and to seek them out. When you are young, you sometimes you're so young to something, you don't even know where to start looking for help, right? It's not on you to figure out how you can be supported when you're young in a stage. It's on the community to notice and acknowledge and seek you out. Seek you out. How can we support you? What are resources? Here is someone that would be a great person for you to know. Here is a podcast. Here is a book. Here's a verse that helped me. Here are 3 things that I wish I had known when I was going off to language school, when I was facing marital stress, whatever it is. Here, we don't, again, also have to overcomplicate it. So, with your small group, what might be some youngness represented in the missionaries that you know that could be obvious youngness? Their first year on the field. So don't also overcomplicate this. It's okay to state the obvious youngness. But look beyond the obvious to other youngness that might be represented in your missionaries. 2 minutes to discuss. All right. This section over here, what are some ways, or one situation you've thought of that someone might be young on the mission field that might not be obvious youngness?
New position.
A new position. Yeah, so a new position on the field. Excellent. This section over here, I'm trying to keep you all on your toes.
We only have obvious youngness examples.
All right, well, let's go with an obvious.
New to the field.
New to the field. Another one. Give me another one. That's as far as you got. Okay, somebody else.
A national Christian leader who's been abroad getting graduate degrees.
Ooh, that's good. A national Christian who's been abroad getting degrees and now is coming back. Yeah. That. Ooh. Let's unpack that one tomorrow. That is good. This section.
National pastor and leader is doing
National pastor in leadership dealing with a new phase of life like empty nesting. His oldest or only daughter? Oldest daughter leaving the home. Yeah, so that's a new phase. Empty nesting is a big new phase. Excellent. The third way that God defines a good shepherd. So we have already cared for the lost. We have sought the young. And the third area is heal, which that's just such a beautiful word. Heal, restore. Heal the injured. And again, here, injury can come from a lot of different places. It could be self-injury. Maybe you made a foolish decision. Maybe you did something sinful. And I think those can be the same, and those can also be different. Sometimes you've just done something foolish that's not sinful, but it has caused injury. You might have done something to injure a teammate relationship. You might have done something to injure your ministry. You might have done something that injures communication with supporters or with your organization, your supporting church. Maybe you have sustained an injury, be that just a cultural misunderstanding that's hurtful. So again, it's nothing, intentional, but we've all been there if you've been on the field, where someone says something to you. There's just, again, some cultural misunderstanding. Some of it's funny. I don't know how many times I was asked if I ate a lot of beef as a child. Yes. No, I did not. I ate a normal amount of beef, whatever that is. No, I don't know. But and some of that stuff you can roll off, you can rub off. But as you begin to have, or just different ones, some are going to be funny and more like Teflon, and then some are more like, Teflon, and some are more like Velcro. And it just sticks, and somehow it's very injurious. More and more, I think, on the mission field, for singles around the world, the older you get, the more you're suspected of being a homosexual, regardless of what country, in ways that it just wasn't before. I'm single. And so when I was single in my 20s and 30s, that was cute. But at 40s and now in my 50s, there's an element that I am suspect that I wasn't before. And so that, again, I don't even, there's just some injuries that you can't control. Wherever you are, people are going to think things or say things or assume things that are out of your control, but they still might injure you. They still might injure you or injure your ministry. So even if that thought or belief doesn't injure me personally, but it is somehow now getting in the way of me ministering, it is injuring my ministry, that's just complex. That's complex. And so there's all different kind of ways that injury can occur on the field. Whether, as I said, some are things we have done, some are things done to us, some are just totally out of our control. They might be the political situation, and you now have to leave, and you don't want to leave your home, but you have no choice. You have to leave. So, again, briefly in your group, think of some of the different ways you know of missionaries who've been injured on the field. This could be all night, but we'll limit it to 2 minutes. Sorry. Okay, center section. I know it's a huge topic, but what's one or two different ways you know people have been injured on the mission field? And it could be physical injury, but I'm talking more broadly. Having to be told to leave. Yeah, that's an injury. That's an injury. Over here, what's a way you know of missionaries that have been injured on the field?
Betrayed financially when you think your money is...
That's a good, I'll use the word good, that's a good example, not that that's good. But being betrayed financially, when someone said they were going to support, did I understand that correctly? Stealing! Oh, someone stealing, that's even worse, yeah. So, right, you think some part is being cared for and then they've ended up stealing from you. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a real injury to the ministry, and to you personally, but yeah. This section over here. Secondary trauma. So you're dealing with people who have been very traumatized, and you then, as you're helping them and hearing about it, getting traumatized by the trauma they have been exposed to. Yeah, that's I hate to use the word good one, but it's a good one to be thinking of, to be reminded of, to be mindful of, that is a real injury. I think many times in member care or missionary care, or we're so focused on these three areas because they are screaming needs of the field. We know people who are lost on the field, and they do need to be cared for. And we know people who are young, and they do need to be sought after. We know so much injury on the mission field and the need for healing. And I think we often stop there. I know I have been guilty of that as I think about people. What I love, I think what drew me to this verse so much was how holistic it is. That God is not just out there to use up and burn out people. But this last phrase is the one that just touches me so deeply, actually even more deeply than the first three. Because it's feed the healthy. God also wants us to identify what is going well and feed it. Not just use up and burn out and deal in crisis management. He gives plenty of space there. So obviously it's not like I'm going to ignore the reality. But that it is, let's look for our missionaries who are in risky places. What's going well? What is healthy in their lives? And feed that. And isn't that just so, like when you've been fed a good meal, or when your soul has been fed, or when you've seen a great movie, or you've read a good piece of literature, or a book. I don't tend to read that much literature. You've read a good book, and it just feeds your soul. And somehow that feeding of the healthy part of you can actually help tend to the parts that are young, or lost, or injured. And so that's a challenge for me as well. When I hear of a situation that is really stressful, like I go in and I try to, how do we solve this? And I really attend to the wounded or the broken or the stressful. And I tend to not really identify what is healthy here and how could we feed that? How can we get more resources there? And I think in our missionary care, we need to be a lot more intentional about looking for the healthy. Are there workshops we can send people to? Are there books? Is there a podcast? Again, is there a relationship or a connection we can make and feed that and tend to those healthy parts and not just wait for it to get into a crisis place, But I think overall, how much better the mission field would be if we all were feeding the healthy part of what is on the field. How much more we could avoid some of the burnout if we had this mindset of feeding the healthy. So now I want you to think of those same missionary friends you've been thinking of. What is healthy in their lives? And potentially, how could you be a part of feeding that? So, your small group, one last time. All right, this section over here. What is one way you could feed the healthy part of a missionary you know?
A healthy marriage and helping them to stay healthy and strong.
A healthy marriage, helping it to stay healthy and strong. Yes, so identifying those missionaries that have healthy marriages, and how can we build into that and keep that healthy and strong? Center section. Yes, sorry. Celebrate success. Identify what is, right, name the successes and then celebrate them. Please.
It's easy to focus and help people with their situations and with good with their idea. But it's really about to come along somebody and say, I'm thrilled with your success. I thank, congratulations on whatever. The positive thing that happened, just celebrate that as kind of an unselfish thing that you gain something.
Right. I like the point here. I'm going to repeat that for the recording. That when there is a problem, to a certain extent, when we help them solve it, it also feeds us. But when there's something to be celebrated and we celebrate it, it is putting all of the attention on the missionary, and we are not coming in to help, to be the helper. So the focus is 100% on the missionary. And so yes, finding those things to celebrate and celebrating them and making it all about not us coming in to help you. You need us. We see what's going well and we want to celebrate. We want to name it and celebrate it and mark it and not just be like, well, great, that's good. What's next? Yeah. No, we're going to sit here and we're going to celebrate this. You finally got that visa or whatever. Right? I mean, and things that might seem small, but we know in the mission world, that's big. And sometimes we're so relieved that you just turn and move on to the next thing. And I think it's a discipline for all of us to build in more of that feeding the healthy, and part of feeding the healthy is celebrating. And I just again think we want to be such an attractive light. And sometimes our light is just not so attractive. Like, who wants to work harder? My hand is down. Not me. But who wants to be part of a community that celebrates and there's joy? Wow, me. So, all right, this section, what's a healthy part of the mission world or a missionary you know that could be fed?
Acclimating to the culture, not hearing the complaints before.
When they've acclimated to the culture. Noticing that and celebrating it. Yeah, like you might say, hey, I used to hear about whatever, not having hot water. and I don't as much, it sounds like you've acclimated. And noticing that, commenting, and then building in the celebration. Yeah, I think that is great. So as we are wrapping up, on the handout, on the back, I think if I can visualize something, it makes it more concrete for me. And so you do not have to fill in this chart right now, but for you to mentally have this picture and to create equal spaces. And I think also to know our proclivity. Maybe we're all going to be drawn to one of these boxes more than the other. And on your mission care teams, on your mission committees at churches, on your organizations, to even have people kind of go through and what boxes are you drawn with. I worked with a ministry in Denver, and it was so interesting that they had like 3 people really drawn to looking for those who are lost. And they had 2 people working with the young, more drawn to that. So seeing that and noticing that, and almost nobody looking for the injured. And to sort of go, okay, like this is just something we need to be aware of because it's not already built into our system. Or having someone that celebrates. So giving space to all of this. And likewise, I was thinking for your missionaries, this bottom part is where they are ministering to, the people that they're ministering to. So to begin to help them to look for who could be young if I'm in a student ministry, who could be young in a hospital setting, who could be young in literature distribution or whatever. What does youngness look like there? What could lostness look like in this context? What could injured? How can we feed the healthy in that? So as we close, I'm going to read Psalm 23 again. And I would like for you to picture in your mind, and we're going to pray over those missionaries and be thinking of these 4 different areas. So the Lord is this missionary's shepherd. They lack nothing. They will be cared for when they're lost. They will be sought when they are young. They will be healed when they are injured. And they will be fed where they are healthy. God makes them lie down in green pastures. He leads them beside the quiet waters. He refreshes their soul. He guides them along the right path for his name's sake. And even though they will walk through the darkest valley, and they will be lost, and they will be young, and they will be injured, they will fear no evil, for God is with them. His rod and his staff, they comfort them. God prepares a table before them in the presence of their enemies, and he anoints their head with oil. Their cup overflows. Surely God's goodness and his love will follow them all of the days of their lives, and they will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. Thank you. I hope as we have our holy inventory, as we think about our own lives and think about people we know, that we will be more caring for the lost, seeking the young, healing the injured, and feeding the healthy. I hope you all sleep very well tonight, and I will see you bright and early when I'm more awake tomorrow. So thank you so much. Have a great evening. No, I know, like, mood music. All right, I was going to give this to him, so. Oh, I did not turn it off.
Okay. Thank you.